May 20th Board of Selectmen meeting. Today's meeting is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. For this meeting, the Board of Selectmen is convening by Zoom as posted on the town's website. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. As a preliminary matter, I'm going to confirm that all members of the board are present and can hear me. I am Bob Springett, Chair. Mr. Jeffries?
Present.
Robin Hunter, as I've said, is going to be.
I am present.
Oh, sorry. Okay, great. Robin Hunter?
Present.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Chris Dwelly?
I'm here.
Kit O'Brien?
Here.
Dave Sullivan?
Here.
Mona DeSulio?
Present.
Alicia Hoffman?
Here.
Okay, I think that's it. So I will move to item, in theory, I will move to item 1.1. Reorganization of the Board of Selectmen. So it is the tradition of the Selectmen to reorganize their positions at their first meeting following the annual town election. The third term member of the board serves as chairman, the second term member of the board serves as clerk, and the first term member serves as a member. So I move to nominate Mr. John Jeffries as chair of the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
All in favor? I, Bob Springett.
I, Robin Hunter.
You can't vote, John.
I can.
So now, John, you have to nominate.
John Jeffries. I move to nominate Ms. Robin Hunter as clerk of the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
I, John Jeffries.
I, Bob Springer.
Now, Robin, your turn.
I nominate Robert Springett as member of the Board of Selectmen.
I'm a newbie and we get a cut in salary.
Yeah, you're number 3 now, Bob.
Oh man, I'm gonna get all this stuff.
Your salary goes down too.
Seconded, John Jeffries.
Oh,
And so we're good.
I,
We're
Robin
good.
Hunter.
Yeah, right. There you go. And I, John Jeffries.
No, I'm gonna vote too my first time. I, Bob Springer.
Yeah. How about that?
How
So
about that? Great. Here's the gavel. John. And I showed you the hat earlier.
yeah, the hat is great. So Bob, would you like to would we like to move to Kate, or do you want to stay in the order that we've now begun?
Well, I think we just ripped through the agenda, John.
Okay. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Bob, really for such a great job last year. We really should just stop and say that it has been a tumultuous year. And I'm really proud of the work that we did. I'm proud to be a part of this board, and I can't be happier to have Bob on my right, Robin on my left. The only question that I have for everyone who's here tonight is, how are we going to do this if Robin can't kick me and Bob can't elbow me like we did 3 years ago?
Soon, John. Soon those restrictions are going to change.
I don't know.
Robin-
I'm kind of liking these Zoom meetings better.
I got a feeling Robin's reach is going to be through the ether. She's just going to be able to figure this out.
I'm
So-
going to figure out how to put you on mute.
Just pay Kate a couple of bucks.
I have
So
my
I-
ways.
Item 1.2 is the Park and Rec Commission Special Town Meeting, Article 4, presentation and vote. For that, Chris, are you going to go first? I know you have a presentation, and Chris Bolin is chair of Park and Rec. Are you going to do the presentation, or will Mark?
Mark is going to walk us through the presentation. I think in the interest of time, I'm going to have Mark get right to it, and then I will add some comment at the back end of the presentation.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Mark?
Yes, all right, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, thank you, John. Thank you, everyone. So we'll be as quick as we can. Kate, you can go to the next slide. So just quickly, we'll go through just community feedback that we've received over the past, close to 10 years about recreation, some programming needs, and then a quick comparison. Next. So every chance the town has, got to express their opinion on recreation, they've been in favor of recreation and been in favor of increasing the opportunities or the facilities in recreation. So here it just kind of shows, if we go back to the 2012 master plan, obviously the master plan included going to multiple stakeholders throughout the town. And then two recommendations when it pertained to recreation was, one, to develop and improve both indoor and outdoor recreation areas to provide a wide range of year-round activities. And number two was to develop a community center that suits those needs for Dover residents. So going back to 2012, we see that the recommendation for the master plan, which is kind of the roadmap for any town for the 20 to 30 years, that was in the master plan. If we go to the 2019 open space and rec plan update survey that was done, question 11 and question 15 pertain to recreation. And question 11, when asked if you were satisfied with recreation facilities, 61% of the respondents were not satisfied with indoor recreation for kids, indoor facilities for kids, and 63% were not satisfied with adult indoor facilities. So that shows, in terms of the need and the need for from residents that they want improved recreation facilities. And then if we go to question 15, do you see a need for any additional recreation facilities? The number one response was for a recreation center. So Dover's top need was a facility similar to what has been proposed by Ford's committee. And then lastly, Collier's 2020 survey that was done during a early meeting. Question 3, what activities are most important? First choice was recreational games. Question 4, what spaces are most important? The second and third choice were recreational games and fitness and dance. So anytime the community has had a chance to give their opinion, they've always supported more recreation and more offerings. Next slide, Kate. So here's just a few feedback. We won't go through all of them, but just the feedback that was on the survey that was done in 2019 from the residents of Dover. As you can see, Carroll Community Center, not a workable space. Would love to see more recreation spaces and facilities. We needed recreation center for kids, teens, adults to share. It's embarrassing that our town does not have one. So those are just some of the comments that were received from the 2019 survey for the open space and recreation plan. Next slide. So here just showcases, there's lots of benefits to recreation space, but these are just our top 5 that we came up with here amongst the commission and the department. So one, obviously promotes community involvement, right? So a recreation space, a recreation opportunity promotes the community, and we're talking the entire community. So it's not just kids, it's teens, it's high school kids, it's adults, it's seniors, it's everybody. It's promoting community within the whole town. It's improving value of community by drawing young families to town and allows seniors more opportunities to stay. We get lots of calls from new families that come to town and they're looking for, hey, what are our choices? What are our options here in town for recreation? Whether it's sports, whether it's programs, events, new families are looking for that when they move to town. And then also it boosts health and happiness in the community. Rec programs and events encourage healthy choices, lifestyles, And that goes for everyone. So everyone that's doing a program, no matter your age, it's increasing your health and happiness. And then moving forward, provides a safe space for community members to develop relationships. We see this across the board, whether you're a teen looking to make friends, if you're a young preschooler looking to be comfortable with your peers and your friends. Those are all things. It's a safe space, and we see this not only indoors but also outdoors. And families feel comfortable with their kids coming to our facility and to meet friends and to meet other people in the community. And there's staff on site. There's the police and fire department right across the street, so families feel safe. And lastly, helps the local economy and provides opportunities for jobs for teens and adults. We see it as an opportunity to have more staff, in terms of teens, year-round programming that can be done in the building, open gym time for the residents. All those can create opportunities, and whether it's a welcome desk, whether it's volunteer opportunities, whether it's paid positions, those are all options for the recreation space. Next slide. So just planning for the future with a larger recreation space, there's a number of limiting factors that we have currently in our space and with the proposed space by the committee. One is limited number of kids that can be in the space. We're limited to 12 to 15 kids per class. This leads to waiting lists that obviously frustrates families, and it's even less for adult programs. So if there's adult programs, it's even less than that, how many can fit into the current space or even the proposed space. Classes are limited by sport, younger ages due to ceiling height and size. Sport, for example, basketball, we no longer have hoops in the space. That cannot be done above first grade due to the ceiling height. Certain sports, lacrosse, for example, is not something that's safe to do in a confined space. And then Park and Rec, COA, other groups, we rent alternative Dover spaces for events that are serving 75 or more people. So that's limiting for us right now, and would be limiting if we keep the space to that general size. So opportunities for growth, obviously with additional recreation space that we are asking for, larger class sizes, fewer wait lists, more full year programs. For example, summer is our biggest program. We have to move off site. We cannot do it at the Carroll Community Center just because of size. So in the past, we've moved to the Chickering School. This year, we're moving to the Connors Center to spread out. So just the opportunity to do full year programming in a community center. Sufficient capacity for luncheons and events for 75 plus people, not only for Parks and Rec, but also for COA. And then the ability to rent space for larger events and creating some income for the community center. We see lots of, whether it's bridal showers, baby showers, weddings, we've had everything at the Carroll Community Center right now, and this would allow us to only increase that. Next slide. So here, just what does a larger recreation space mean for you, for the resident? All right, as I mentioned, it's safer programs, more space, after school sports classes, 20 plus spots in those, less waiting lists, comprehensive summer programming, increasing youth sports practices, drop-in programs. We get lots of requests from families. Hey, can my kid just come and use the gym, an open gym? This would allow this. We could have a class running and we could separate an open gym to have kids come and use the gym, not for an organized program. And then also, as you see, increased birthday party offerings, pickleball, more courts for pickleball, speaker series for COA and luncheons for over 100 people. Those are all things that can take place in the recreation space. And then also a backup space. So whether you're talking about outdoor movies that we do, summer concerts, those are all, right now we don't have a space to bring those, even a backup location for a town election. This recreation space would use that. Next slide. So then lastly, this here is our last, so if you look at kind of the current Carroll community space, which is a little over 2,100 square feet, the proposal from the building committee is 2,500 square feet on the right. And then we're asking for an additional 1,000 square feet to make it 3,500 square feet with Article 4. And we got a cost estimate from Ford and his team, and the additional 1,000 square feet would be $850,000 as of this week. So that's just looking at comparative, and we do get the question, obviously there's other full-size gyms in town. Chickering, middle school, high school, we do partner well with the schools. However, they are running after-school programming for practices, and we've confirmed even up to this week that they are not available for us for running in our peak times of after school. It would be off times, 7 p.m. At night or weekends. So that's all I have. Chris, I'll let you join in, and if you want to fill in any gaps, but if there's any questions, more than happy to answer those too.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I think really just two key points just to add to what Mark said. One is that we are looking for additional space. The current space or the proposed space are both close enough that they meet the current needs. What we're looking for is enough space to meet the current and future needs. And this is immediate future. This is as soon as the space is built. So this isn't 10 years down the road. Mark and his team have built so much momentum and goodwill in town by expanding the recreation programs and building the community. And we just want to make sure that we have enough recreation space to meet our needs for this foreseeable future. Second point related to that, as Mark mentioned, we are not asking for a full-size gym. Full-size gym would be a focus again on youth sports at the exclusion of other groups in the community. We're looking for a space that really is appropriate for all of the members of the community, as Ford says, from ages 2 to 92. And we think that a 60 by 60 space will meet the current and future needs of the entire community for the foreseeable future. So that's kind of why we're looking for that space. And we feel that at $850,000 on top of 18 million, that's a ton of value, of incremental value that we're providing if we're able to get that space. So we would appreciate your support and your consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you, Mark. Well done. My comments are very simply that these articles, this type of article, Chris, I think is consistent with what Bob and Robin and I have been advocating, throughout the whole process, that if a group such as yours felt that they had a valid, as you have just described, reason to come to us to add an article to the warrant, I think this is consistent with what we've said. So I think you made a very good case. Robin?
I agree. This is all in the spirit of of what we were trying to do. I actually attended the Park and Rec meeting last night on Zoom, and I think they have definitely made a compelling argument for the space. I think it's important to understand this is not just for youth programs, which I think they emphasized today. It's for all programs. The seniors, non-senior adults, just adults in town, a lot of different types of the space is going to be the home for many different kinds of programs. And I think fundamentally, that's the basis of this community center. It is for Dover residents ages 2 to 32, or to 92, sorry. So everybody should be using it. So I certainly agree. I know the one thing from all of the meetings that Bob and Ford and attended, and the various community centers they visited, the one comment that they came back with that resonated with me was nobody said they had built a building that was too big. Everybody wished that they had built a building that was a little bit bigger to house all of the programs. And I think that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to build a building that's going to last us the next 100 years, and is going to be able to house those programs. So I do support, the additional space.
Bob?
Okay, so I agree pretty much with what everyone has said. The way we set this up, going all the way back, was to essentially set up a pathway for two things to happen. One, for the building committee to do its work and provide back to a town meeting in the future to be June 12th, their assessments of either a renovate and or a new building for the town to consider. And they're certainly in position to do that, and that'll be presented on June 12th. We also thought very carefully about how to provide a pathway for people in town who wanted additional either space or services in the community center. And because in the past, the issue was with the community centers was not reacting to community desires or wants. It was getting the community to pay for those desires and wants. So in thinking this through, we thought the best way to accommodate everyone in town was to create a benchmark community center. The building committee has heard people, and the benchmark that we presented back in 2019 was expanded to include much more recreation space than any of the community centers that we visited back in 2019 had. And that was absolutely fine because we needed it. We need the community center to respond to the interests of the citizens, residents of Dover. And they've done that. They've created a building with at least 2,500 square feet. For those groups that want to have more, the pathway was to put up an article, take it to town meeting, make your case, and have the town meeting decide what it was they wanted to pay for. So I think if we go forward, you guys have made compelling cases, according to Robin, to the information session. I understand where you're coming from tonight, and I think it's very important to emphasize I think Chris said this, and again, it meets our current needs, and the additional space will help us meet future needs. Right? And I think that's a very important concept. But I'm very well, I am sort of inclined to allow the town meeting on June 12th to decide what it is they want to pay for. That's it.
Excellent. Thank you. So, motion with no other discussion amongst us, the Board of Selectmen, I move to recommend Article 4 of the special town meeting warrant as presented. And what I would like to do, Bob and Robin, is just to follow the same protocol that we've been following that was established with Bob. And I'll ask Robin as the clerk to second the motion and then Bob to vote. So I, John Jeffries, move to recommend Article 4 of special town meeting warrant as presented.
So John, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
What are we voting on? Do we need to vote on this? It's already
No,
on
no,
the town.
we're recommending it to be on the warrant. It's
But it's already on the
Already
warrant,
on the warrant.
right? So I mean, if you're looking for, I mean, I'm not quite sure. Do we need a vote here?
Chris Dwelly, is the motion for a recommendation separate?
So nothing, so this evening's, this agenda item was a presentation from Chris as chair of the Park and Rec Commission and Mark as the Park and Rec Director about Article 4 that they presented. If the Board of Selectmen was inclined to make any type of recommendation or any type of official position, you could do so. It's not required. It's not mandatory. As Robin had said, the warrant's been finalized and everything is on there. So tonight, really, the focus was a presentation and to hear from the petitioners of Article 4.
Right.
So the formality of a vote is not necessary. Does it matter either way?
That's a call for the Board of Selectmen to make if they want to officially recommend this article, and frankly, any article that is on the town meeting warrant.
Right, so I don't think we usually do that, and I certainly, from my comments, I am very supportive of this article. I think a lot of good work went into it. I personally believe it should be included as part of the building. I want to think that we're going to build a building that's going to last for many, many years, and I think this will do it. So I personally very much support this article and bringing it forward to the town.
Chris Bolin, if the Board of Selectmen state unanimously that we are in favor of you bringing this article, will that suffice?
Any positive indication of any kind would be appreciated. I think what we're really looking for is that.
Okay. So
If you want to go all the way to endorsing it, you can do that. If you want to hold short and just say that you're in favor of it being presented to the town, I'm fine with that. But anything positive that you could provide us with would be greatly appreciated.
okay, thank you. I just think from the standpoint of the procedure for this evening that we would recommend, the board would recommend that Article 4 move forward to the special town meeting and it be on record that you have our unanimous support. I think that accomplishes everything that we would like to do, and that I think we're unanimous in that. And I think that is in line with what your hopes are and your expectations are. Chris Dwelly, are you in agreement with that?
Yep.
Terrific.
In terms of making a motion to that effect.
In terms of making a motion, as Robin has pointed out, in terms of actually having a vote and a motion, I think that everybody is in agreement. We can state that we're unanimous in the support of this
No, we
article.
can't, John.
We can't.
No, because
Without
at the most, I will abstain from the vote. I really believe that this should be done at town meeting by the attendees at town meeting, not by the Board of Selectmen.
Right, but I think it's a nuance here. All Park and Rec is looking for, and all I think we're trying to do here is just say, we are supportive of this warrant article. So that
Correct.
to me means we are supportive, moving this forward to the town.
To the town.
To the
It's
town.
already on the warrant and it'll already be voted at the town meeting. So I get a vote at town meeting that actually counts, right?
Right.
You're not voting for it, you're voting in favor of, you're supporting the fact that this warrant article is going to be voted on at town meeting. I think that's all they're looking for you to do.
I will abstain.
Okay.
Well, I think that we've accomplished what we want to accomplish. I think that everybody's in agreement of that. So it doesn't, I don't think it necessitates a vote, and I think everybody would be happy. Please correct me if you're wrong, if we just left it right here and we're looking forward to the presentation at town meeting.
That's fine with me.
Robin?
Yeah, I mean, again, I support moving forward with this. I support going to town meeting with it.
Well, I think we're on record for that. And I think it's a good place to say thank you to Chris and to Mark. And it's an excellent presentation. And I'm looking forward to it to seeing it on the town meeting on June 12th. So thank you both.
Thank you. We appreciate the audience and we appreciate your feedback. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night. 1-3. Special town meeting, community center building finance plan and potential vote. Mr. Christopher Dwelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations on your promotion. As the building committee worked to finalize the feasibility study and the schematic designs, and as they started to finalize the cost estimates for the building, the town's finance team wanted to work closely with them to essentially put together a financing plan, right? How are we as a community going to be able to pay for this project? And so we got together, and there were two key tenets that we wanted to follow as we put this together. The first was, how do we ensure affordability to the community? And the second was, how do we avoid or minimize any spikes, unnecessary spikes in the tax rate year over year for the duration of the project? So with those two tenets in mind, we put together a few scenarios, all predicated upon 20-year debt exclusion in order to fund the project. So the first was, we looked at just what the basic 20-year borrowing with level principal would look like. And that's your typical kind of declining graph that you see year over year, where the cost is more in earlier years and it starts to decrease over time until it retires. One of the things that we didn't particularly like about that was that those higher years up front could cause spikes in the tax rate. So you could go from on a median house, essentially a $900 cost, and that's not the actual cost. I'm just using this as an example. All the way down to a $500 cost in future years. And again, that didn't meet the tenet of ours to try to stabilize the annual cost of this project. The next was to see if we could use bond anticipation notes to try to push out the incurrence or the impact of when we'd start to seriously pay off the debt. But all that really did under that scenario was push those spikes that I just referenced, out to future years. So the third option that we came up with, and this is what I'm presenting to the board this evening, and I will ask for a recommendation from the board on this, is to use $4 million of cash reserves to both reduce the overall cost of the project and to smooth out those spikes that I referenced. Now in your packet on page 3, you'll see a visualization. If the board would like, I can bring it up, but unless I hear otherwise, I'll just continue to speak to it. There are two graphs. One shows that declining cost that you see under normal circumstances without using cash reserves. So you see that the first 3 years, you're looking at $900 on the median valued property in town in terms of an annual cost. The next 5 years, $800 each year. The next 6 years, $700. And so that's 14 years, 2/3, or really 3/4 of the life of the loan at a significant cost to the taxpayers. So what applying free cash does is illustrated in that second chart below that. And you see that instead of spikes, now the annual year-over-year cost is level, and it rarely goes over $700 in any year under that scenario that I gave you as it relates to the median house. I do also want to make note that these dollar figures that I'm referencing this evening are the cost of every single warrant article that's on the warrant. So it's the base building, the new or the renovated building, plus the addition of Article 4 that we just talked about this evening, plus the addition of Article 5, which is the request for additional preschool space. So obviously, depending on what's chosen at town meeting, those numbers could decrease.
Unless I'm looking at the wrong thing, there's still so in the first example, you start up at $900 and then you gradually go down over the life of the bond, right? But in the second one, you're still, so I guess you never get up as high as 900, you sort of stay around 700, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So it's just in the first 2 years, it's much lower.
The first 2 years, it's significantly lower, and then all the subsequent years, really until, for the most part, the loan retires or the issuance retires, it's steady at one rate.
So, but this is the full cost of the bond, and what about bonds that are getting paid off? Is that net of those or not?
So that's my next transition item. So I'll
Okay.
segue right into that. So I wanted to just give the example of how applying cash reserves, again, can help reduce the overall cost of the project, which helps ensure affordability. And then, of course, again, help reduce year-over-year annual spikes, which I know is important to the community. Now, as Robin has mentioned, presently in FY21, we've got about $1 million in existing debt service that's being apportioned to taxpayers. And now a majority of that debt will retire over the next 3 to 4 years. So ultimately what that means is that the net impact of the base project at $18 million will cost the taxpayers of Dover who have the average assessed property value at like $1.18 million. It will cost them $50 additionally a year for a new or a renovated community building. And I think, in my perspective, that that meets the mark around affordability. $50 a year appropriation to do something over across the street, I think is,
And that assumes the $4 million of
Free cash.
free cash being.
It does.
Great. So Chris, is there anything else that you would like to add to with regards to comment on and this is the impact of what we've just been presented, but not Article 4 and not Article 5?
I only applied, given that, correct. If all articles pass, the cost, the sum of the cost obviously will reduce because we're applying $4 million in cash reserves. But in this analysis and in this paperwork, I've only applied the $4 million to the base structure, given that that's kind of the base presentation that's been presented.
Great. Well done.
Hey,
Very well
Chris.
done. Bob?
Yeah, thanks, John. Chris, the option 3A is what the last chart in the pack. What does that show?
So this is just
Show the effective free cash on the total.
it does the free cash on the total. Yep.
So John, if you look at 3A, if all the articles were presented, you get the same. You wouldn't have the same spike that would spike at under $900 over time, but you see the same trend in the chart where it's sort of moderate. It's kept at a relatively steady state.
This is the best chart that
Right.
I've ever seen that exemplifies, that illustrates what we've been talking about, the impact of rebates and not utilizing money for rebates. This is very well done.
So what I'd like, I know I'm sure it's difficult for folks joining us on the call or at the meeting this evening to kind of follow along. I'm working with the building committee and the board, as we're going to talk about an executive summary in a moment, to make sure that we're incorporating this information into material so that people can see it and actually understand it. But what I really wanted from the board this evening was an indication of support one way or the other of using cash reserves. I've proposed $4 million to be applied to this project to, again, help reduce the overall cost of the project, essentially keep the town's debt service that they're currently paying level moving forward, and avoid any really major spikes in tax increases over future years by moving forward with this project.
So Chris, I actually got a couple of text messages, and people that are listening to the call said it would be really helpful if they could see those charts.
Okay. Do you want me to, so what can we do? I can start again and we can just visualize the charts that,
Yeah, maybe if you just show the three charts and give your Cliff Notes version of the explanations. You did a really good job.
all right, let me see what I can do here. Kate or Dave, can you let me share? How do I share something other than a whiteboard? That's the only option that's coming up.
Do you want me to try share and you can,
You might have to. It's the document that, or anyone else, someone
Well,
say.
Rob-
Thank
there
you,
you
Rob.
go.
All right, so we'll start here. So the first is, so again, I just wanna make it clear here that this first graph, the first bar chart here that you see, is the total project cost. This is for all of the articles. This is for either the new or the renovated $18 million building, as well as the addition of the recreation space and the addition of the preschool space. So if we stay on this, what I wanted to show was that without using cash reserves and on a general traditional 20-year bond issuance debt exclusion to pay for the project, this is what the annual cost would be to a taxpayer with a property valued at 1.25 million. That's a little bit more than what our current year's median home value is in town. So what you see here again is you see those high years early on, and then you see it start to decline as the debt retires. So again, thinking, how can we shave those first years from being such a dramatic increase, but also reduce the entire cost of the project? We applied the $4 million of reserves, which is illustrated here on this bottom slide. And so now you see, I'm not sure if they can fit both in the screen, but you see now that the year-over-year cost is really, for the most part, level. The first couple of years, it's a decrease, which is a benefit, and then all those other years are much more level. Now, what this chart doesn't show, which I will say right now and then lead into the slide before we move to it, is that this is just the straight gross cost of all of the articles. This does not take into account that what's referred to as debt drop off that I've mentioned. So the town is already paying for debt right now, which is illustrated in this next slide. And so what essentially we'll be doing is that we'll be replacing that existing debt as it drops off with this current debt, which essentially allows for almost the same exact payment as taxpayers are paying now, but we get a building. And so this might be a little tough to see, but if you look at FY21, so the median homeowner at 1.184 with the property valued at 1.184 is paying right now about $500 a year in debt service for existing projects. So this is for the Chickering School, this is for projects at the region, this is for Springdale. And then you see that we've added in these colors here in red, green, and purple, the various costs of the articles that'll be on the special town meeting warrant. And what I don't have here illustrated in a clear way. But what I mentioned earlier is that with our existing debt that you see in FY21, that $500 that we're currently paying, if the board were to endorse this financial plan, and if the base building, Article 1 or 2, either the renovated or the new building, were to be passed, and without the other articles being passed, Article 4 and Article 5, the median homeowner whose home is valued at 1.184 would instead of paying $500 now, would be paying $550 a year. So the net increase of this project to that individual is $50 a year. And so I hope having the visualization here helps explain that and make kind of my statement a little bit more clear. But as I mentioned, we're working hard to make sure that this is very clear in the materials that will subsequently go out to the community, so that people have this information at their fingertips. They understand what it means and they can see how it impacts them. But again, this evening for the board, I wanted to present the financing plan that we've come up with, and I actually seek your endorsement and recommendation of it this evening.
Great,
I'm happy to
thank
take
you.
any questions too, if.
Thank you, Chris. So, Bob, would you like to add anything to that?
John, thank you. Chris and I have spent half today going over, and probably most of this week, going over various and sundry iterations. And I think that third chart, the colored chart, really does illustrate quite nicely and very visually, in a very visual way, what the plan, given its goals, the outcome of hitting those goals. And I'm sitting here like Chris, thinking that you can't have a much sweeter deal than basically something like $5 a month for a new building. So I think the plan itself is well conceived. There were other options, and Chris, you can step in or step on me whenever. And we had a couple of other options we looked at. We chose this option because we thought it hit the target really well, and because you're using free cash over a 10-year period, it also conserved free cash. And so it was sort of a prudent way of achieving those objectives. So I'm done. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Robin, anything to add?
So I think it's a little bit confusing. So I think what you're trying to say is each year over a 30-year bond, the town 20-year. So the
20
town. So the town is going to use $90,000 of free cash. No, did I do the math right?
No, Robin, I think it starts out at 900,000 for the first year and then moves down in a sloping way, so that you're moderating the spike in the real estate in the debt.
Correct.
Chris, you got to help me here.
No, that's
No,
correct. And
that's
as you
correct.
mentioned earlier, Bob, it's only for 10 years. It's not for the full life of the bond.
So you're going to use. Well, you're not going to use 400,000 a year. It's going to be
No.
a different amount each year.
It's
So you don't see that in the graph. So the one thing that I'd like to see or understand better is, I don't want to put the community in a position where we've overcommitted free cash to one project and don't have the ability to continue to stabilize the tax rate over time. So I just want to make sure that there are no unintended consequences to today committing to utilize that $4 million in cash. So I need to understand that a little bit better, because I think what you're basically saying, I believe after town meeting, do we have $10 million in free cash?
11. So, but Robin, I think, and Chris, correct me, that one of the things that Robin has just illustrated is you can show the utilization of the free cash over the period of time. And I think that's one item that might help from a visual standpoint.
No, so that's not what I'm saying. So what I'm trying to say here is, I thought our goal was, as a board of selectmen, to make sure that we methodically began to reduce the excess amount in cash reserves, but did that in a very methodical basis so that there weren't any unintended consequences which may impact the or a spike in the tax rate. So we've been really slow and conservative about getting there. And I think based upon all the work that we've done with the Department of Revenue, we know that free cash should be somewhere around 15% of your operating budget. So that means it should be, because that's the liquidity you need to maintain your AAA ratings. So that means your free cash balance should be somewhere around $6 million, which utilizing this free cash brings it there. So are we hurting ourselves? There are no guarantees that we're always going to return free cash. We've done a number of things to help reduce that, such as trend-based budgeting, to try and reduce higher turnbacks. We've done a better job forecasting our new growth so that we don't have significant turnbacks. We also set the stabilization fund up with minimal capital stabilization fund with a minimal seed funding, because we wanted to grow that over time so we could help reduce or not show the impact to the tax rate as we have other capital replacement projects that come up. So I would just like to better understand or get a better feel for how utilizing this $4 million in free cash, which is a significant amount of money right now, isn't going to inadvertently impact what we're trying to do with stabilizing the tax rate.
I think part of the answer to that question is the timeline of the utilization of that money. Chris?
Yeah, so I'm happy to, what I can do is I can, get our current free cash amount, and show what the balance would be if we were to use this. And then, I guess, in some respects, the goal is to stabilize the tax rate. This, using cash reserves for a purpose like this, does that. And so I guess it's a policy decision at the end of the day, and how the community, if one of its most important goals is to use its reserves to stabilize the tax rate, well, how do you want to then apply those reserves? Do you want to stabilize the tax rate when you've got to take care of your capital buildings like we have with the community center? Or would you prefer to have that on hand for other annual things that may come up year over year? And that's a policy decision for the board. But I'm happy. I think what perhaps could help is what our current balance is. I can do a back of the napkin calculation of what I anticipate based on our budget guidance going into next year, our cash reserve balance would be, and then how this $4 million would affect that.
That would be really helpful to me.
Okay.
So John, if you have a minute.
Sure.
I absolutely do. I want to, so it's not really, it's a sort of a conundrum because the intent is to meet the goal of stabilize the tax rate. And so you're caught between, you're utilizing it to actually stabilize the tax rate. I would agree with Chris when it comes down, because without using the free cash, you get a spike, a very, very big spike. And that people may find that to be unappetizing at the town meeting. I think the way that this has been laid out, and John's also right, I mean, it was done over a period of time so that we were not consuming $4 million of free cash in one go. You could do that. You could take $4 million, plop it into the front, and you get a lower curve. So this was really an attempt to be very, very judicious about the use of free cash. And I don't know how quickly that line slopes from 900,000 down to over the 10-year period of time, which would also be sort of an interesting thing to see. But so if your objective is to replace Carroll as a capital asset, one that has been sort of let go for a very long time, this is a very sweet deal as far as I can tell.
Agree. Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much. So we're being asked to endorse this plan, and we're being asked to make a motion to approve, to recommend. Hang on one second. I just want to get the exact wording, because there's one thing in here that we haven't really focused on, and Robin has brought this up pretty much every time we've had a public hearing, and that's the cost of doing nothing. There is no cost. There is no option where it will not cost something. And what I was about to add to what you said, Bob, is when you buy anything, there is going to be a spike because we're going from nothing to something. And the one thing I really want to emphasize is, again, what Robin has pointed out in every public hearing that we've had over the 20 or so that we've had regarding this project. There is no zero cost. There is a cost to everything. So if none of this happens, there will be a cost to renovate the building. So we are being asked, the suggested motion is I move to approve the financing plan, the emphasis being on the plan, for the renovated or new Carroll Community Center as presented. That's the motion that we are being asked to make. Is there anything, Chris Dwelly, that you would like to add to that motion?
I wouldn't add anything. I would just say that is a suggested motion for the board. If the board feels uncomfortable at this point based on comments, you don't have to make a motion, but any member at any time can make a motion to any effect, and you get votes to support or you get votes not to. But I did, again, I came into this evening wanting to present this plan. I know that we've got a few weeks left before we have town meeting, and I know that there's, communication materials that need to go out. But I understand that Robin's got a valid question that I did not come prepared to present this evening. So I kick it back to you, John, or
Okay.
on
I don't think the visualization of that smoothing effect and the utilization over a period of time would affect the motion that we are approving a financing plan. I think a financing plan is going to be a work in progress by definition. So I don't think anybody is expecting us this evening to vote definitively on the plan. I think the spirit, the intent behind this vote is that we are agreeing on a plan that encompasses the base cost, and that we're also making it very clear that, as Chris Boland said, there would be a small cost above for Article 4. There'll be a larger cost for Article 5, and those two costs should stand on their own. That's how I view this. Robin, would you like to weigh in on that?
Then I'm not quite sure what we're voting on here, because
We
I
would
thought
be-
we were voting on a financing plan that included the utilization of $4 million of free cash. And at this juncture, I cannot support that. I don't have enough information.
Okay.
I mean, I fully understand that we're going to be financing this. And I think, and I don't have an issue with recommending the use of free cash, but I'm just not sure that I am comfortable at this juncture using $4 million of free cash.
Okay. So, Bob, where do you stand?
Well, I think I said that. I think this is a sweet deal. But listening to Robin, I mean, the plan components are borrowing and using free cash to smooth the spikes that would be incurred by the borrowing. So so when we talk about the financial plan, if we talk about it with those two components, you know, debt exclusion, borrowing $18 million, and offsetting the spikes, which is consistent with Board of Selectmen goals for stabilizing the tax rate, and using free cash to do that. I think maybe the three of us could agree, and then we can work out the details of the plan as we move forward in time.
So so let me think about this for a second. If a suggested motion, as Chris has asked for this evening, is for the approval of a financing plan that incorporates the use of free cash, I'm definitely in favor of that. I don't think that we are in a position to say definitively how that is going to impact the taxpayer this evening. I think that if I don't think we're being asked to do that. The motion is not asking for the approval of the financing plan. It's asking for the approval of a financing plan that utilizes free cash.
Yes.
So, and I'm in favor of that. And I think Robin just said she was in favor of it, but wouldn't feel comfortable voting on that at this moment without knowing how that, Robin, I don't want to put words in your mouth at this stage, without knowing how that would actually be, how the money would be utilized over a period of time. Is that right?
Well, I want to understand, you know, and you could do a pro forma model. I could do it myself. You know, we've said all along, you need to look out long term. So I just want to understand long term, given the other capital requirements that we have. You know, keep in mind, we have $2 million of roofs at the schools that need to be replaced in the next year or two. So there are a lot of other capital expenditures, and the plan was to utilize a capital stabilization fund to help offset a spike in the tax rate from those expenditures.
Mm-hmm.
And we agreed as a compromise, you know, to fund that $600,000, which is $1.4 million less than what the calculation supported to actually help smooth it out. So I just want to understand how utilizing $4 million in free cash over the next 4 or 5 years will still allow us to utilize additional free cash to help stabilize the tax rate with some other large capital expenditures that are coming up.
Mhm.
I have not had an opportunity to try and look at that. So at this juncture, again, I am not comfortable and will not vote to utilize $4 million or to recommend to utilize $4 million. Because at the end of the day, it's the citizens of Dover that are gonna vote for us to
Right.
fund it with free cash.
Right.
But Robin, the big projection is how much free cash. Are you gonna have to predict a flow of free cash back to the town in order to do your assessment?
Right.
That's not knowable.
Well, it's a forecast, Bob. I'll make some assumptions and at least you put a stake in the ground. What I'm saying is I'm not willing to do this blindly. You know, the assumptions we make could be completely wrong, but at least I've taken a stab at it.
Right. And along the same lines, Robin, we could vote this evening and Chris could have proposed $2 million or $6 million. And the dollar amount, I think the dollar amount that the example of the dollar amount utilized is going to have implications, obviously, and have an impact on the tax rate. So regardless of what amount we use, if we use 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, 10 million.
Right. But, you know, I've stood up here and preached that methodically using free cash will help long-term to stabilize the tax rate.
Correct.
Fully
We are
believe
all on that same page.
that taking small steps towards that will lead to success. And some have, you know, some people think my approach is way too conservative. And that's because I am trying to avoid unintended consequences. And I don't want to, without understanding or at least attempting to understand what this could potentially do long-term to the goal of trying to stabilize the tax rate, I fully understand that this makes spending $18 million on a community center much more palatable. But I just need to understand what it does to other capital that needs to be replaced.
Mhm. Okay, so I think the prudent thing to do this evening is to table this, take it under advisement, to move this article to our next meeting, which will be the moderators meeting where we could vote on it at that time prior to town meeting. I do think it is very important to give direction on this type of financing, on a type of financing plan to the voters, because people have asked you, they've asked me, they've asked Bob, how are we going to pay for this and what's it going to mean to us? I agree with both parts of what you said about having the clarity, and I also agree that from Bob's perspective, Chris's perspective, that this is a very good, it's a great deal for the taxpayer. It's a very good way to utilize our free cash. I think it accomplishes everything that we set out to do. I do agree, Robin, that there's a bit of uncertainty with what's left over, right? In terms of money, utilization of money, of what's left over. Chris, do you have a problem if we table this, bring it to for a vote at our next meeting on the 8th?
So I've got no problem with that. As I mentioned, I'll get to work to put this information together. The only thing I'd mention, I think at this point, is the board might want to consider if they're going to review options to present some type of financing plan, that you might want to do that sooner than the moderators meeting so that you've got time to communicate that to the public. At the end of the day, people are going to want to know what's the cost of the project. So I think the sooner we can do that, the better.
Well, item 1.7 is our establishing our next meeting. So we should probably address that in 1.7 and maybe have a meeting that we specifically call to address this, and dedicate a significant part of that meeting to this, because I agree with you that this is something people should have. I think it's well thought out. I applaud the amount of time, energy, and effort that you've put into this. And I think it's very important that we do this and get it in front of the voters, as you say, sooner rather than later.
No, and I completely agree with that. And as a matter of fact, there's a capital budget meeting on Tuesday night, and I can make sure that we address that as well.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to move on. Thank you all. This is very, very informative, and it's it really has been impactful. I think this is we're absolutely going down the right path, and we just have to make sure it's crystal clear. I know there's going to be surprises regardless of what path we take, but this is a very important part of it. So thank you all for the discussion. So item 1.4. This is the review of the document that Bob, you created, and Robin and I had edits on. Chris, do you want to make the presentation, or would you like Bob to do that?
I'm happy to have Bob take the lead. The board has the latest revisions, so if the board wants to, if the board's comfortable with that, or if you want to make revisions on that document, that'd be the next step.
Mr. Springett, AKA editor.
Grumpy editor.
I was going to leave that part out, but.
So I would prefer that we look at the draft version 4.5 for comments. So I put this together. I began to draft this because I think it was Robin who said at one of our last meetings that it had been the practice of the board on special town meetings to create a Board of Selectmen executive summary outlining the issues as well as we could for the voters to go out to all households prior to the special town meeting. So I looked at some of the documents that have been sent out in the past. And then I looked at a number of communications that the building committee has sent out. And I also looked at, Ford and I are working on finalizing frequently asked questions for distribution to the town. So I wanted to make a summary from the board that represented the board's view and was consistent with the language and the points made in other pieces of communication. And I wanted to make sure that we were emphasizing the more important points that I heard from Ford and the building committee as we've gone through time. So the version 4.5 incorporates most of the feedback I got from Robin and from you, John. And I added in some of the impact of borrowing stuff that I've been working with Chris on, and voting procedures that we could send out to the town. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions, or I'll give you time to read it if you haven't. Let me know which direction you would like me to take to produce a final summary.
Robin?
So I'm not sure what version, did you say version 4.5, Bob?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
So that should have went out in an email to you earlier today.
Mona sent that out earlier today, Robin.
Well, maybe I just downloaded the wrong version.
It's the version with your edits. It's a finished version with your edits and then my comments on as a preamble.
Right. So, basically, I thought Bob did the really hard part. He put it together, which is always the hardest thing to do. And then I think all I did was rearrange some of the stuff because I felt as though I felt as though people may not look beyond the first page. So I just wanted to make sure that the first paragraph was in bullet form and just spelled out exactly what we were looking for here.
Okay. So
So I just
There's
may be looking at the wrong thing.
yeah, there's
I mean, I
nothing
have
really
it with
that,
my edits, which,
there's no, there's the item of the version that I have is the last version that you edited with, again, just the additional items that I've made with respect to quorum and the framing the meeting and the importance of a quorum and the importance of the protocol of the meeting. So I think with all the work that Bob and Ford have put into the summary, I think this covers all the topics that will be in front of the voters for the articles that we have
right,
on the warrant. So if there's nothing to add to it, if there's no other edits to make, then the motion is a move to approve the executive summary documents as presented.
In the alternative, John, if we're gonna have an interim meeting, we give people time to review this in detail and then re-raise it at that interim meeting rather than do it tonight.
So what would you add to it that we would
oh, you can always add commas and,
I'm thinking that there may be some amendments that we'll make to some of the charts as we go through time.
right. Right,
Okay.
and there was some X's on dollar amounts.
There's a couple of X's on dollar amounts, and I think in there I asked for a specific ad from Park and Rec. So there are a couple of sort of open
Iterations.
items that need to be closed down. But if this is the general gist, then closing down a couple of items should be able to be accomplished in a very short period of time. And if we have to meet before June 2nd because Ford needs the information for his prelude to town meeting presentation. So this all has to be done so he can have that information session, which is essentially a rehearsal for town meeting on June 2nd.
Okay, so June 2nd only gives us next week.
Yeah, it gives
So
us about a week, yes.
we'd have to vote tonight to have a meeting next week to have that available for June 2nd.
Yes.
All right, so let's do the same thing we did on the last agenda item, and we'll address that in 1.7 when we establish our June meetings.
Okay.
Right, but I think to Bob's point, I think we now have the gist of it. So it's just maybe moving a bullet point up or down.
Right.
You know,
But what
putting-
I'm hearing from both of
putting
you
in
is you would rather
numbers
not
where
vote on
there
this
are
tonight.
X's and then just seeing how it reads from there.
Yeah, that's right. I think
Okay.
that's right.
I think the
Couple of-
hard work's been done. It's just,
Okay, but what I'm hearing both of you say is you would rather not vote on this motion this evening. Table that until we meet next week. Is that
yeah,
correct?
but I think we'll be in a position to finalize it next week. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And I mean, and what we're saying is there's just not a lot of more work to do.
You can't over edit your edits, Robin.
Oh, I can, Ford and I do, we spend centuries editing and re-editing stuff. So we're looking at something like May 27th or May 26th.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, right?
Okay, let's move to Kate and item 1.5. Kate, you are up.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm really excited to talk to you tonight and provide the board with an update of our website. It's hard to believe that it's been pretty much a year since we went live. So I'm just going to give you a little update on the progress we've made, the guidelines we've created, and what we're working on for the future. Just in case you forgot what our old website looked like, I just wanted to remind you. I know there was a running joke that you could make a sandwich when you clicked on something, and it would take that long for it to open up. So just again, where we've come from, we've come a long way. So just a little timeline. We had the public launch in June of 2020. We had a public survey that went out in August of 2020. In September, we held 2 internal staff trainings, but we also held 2 virtual public tours. In January of 21, we had Parks and Rec launch their new site. And in February of 2021, we made the big move to doverma.gov.
Thanks to Mona during COVID tracking me down.
Yes, definitely. Thanks to Mona for that. Mona and Dave. So some highlights, we've had it's been a busy year. So I think some of the highlights for the website has definitely been our COVID-19 page. It's been updated weekly since we went live. It has a red alert symbol on the top, so it's easy to find, and it is connected to our COVID-19 RSS alerts. So whenever there's an update, an alert gets sent out. And that so far has been very successful. The second thing would be our Notify Me Center. So this allows people, like I mentioned for the COVID-19 updates, to sign up for various email or text notifications from departments. This tool has been really helpful during COVID. We're also finding it useful to notify residents of job opportunities, bid openings, meeting postings, and really any breaking news. The social media hub page is a one-stop shop for all our social media channels. So we have our Facebook, our YouTube page on there, and Twitter. Earlier this spring, we debuted the burn permit page. And so we worked with the police chief on this. So the burn permits are automated. So when it's in season, the department has the opportunity to change the burn status daily. So another highlight, and I think everyone would agree, really, would be the community center building committee page. You know, as a committee, they've really, they've really taken the lead on updating their page and putting everything on there. So definitely one of our most updated committee pages. Every presentation's on there, every FAQ, every meeting video is on there, and really kind of a great example of a committee collaborating with us and getting content up in a timely manner. So the website was also mixed into our FY20 and FY21 goals. One of the first ones was implementing online tools. So again, like I mentioned, the burn permits, the transfer station stickers, the special alcohol licenses, and the pay online feature. Another thing, a part of our goal was the public feedback. So like I mentioned before, we did hold a public survey. And then also that feedback from the survey and the feedback from staff and residents up to this point has resulted in some changes, whether that be less clicks to get to an item, or just more pictures, different pictures. And finally, the last thing was putting together a website team. So we put together an internal website team that consists of a few key staff members who update the website. They really operate as the gatekeeper. So this website team has developed protocols for the website, for updating the website for staff and for boards and committees. So the website team created these guidelines mostly just for updating content. We want our content to be updated frequently. We want boards and committees and staff to get in the habit of checking their pages once a week or after every meeting. So What we're doing is department staff, there's one person in each department that will be responsible for updating their own department page. We provided training in the fall for staff, but we're going to be circling back there this summer and having monthly refresher training sessions starting in June. So staff, it's been a while, so I think those will be helpful. For boards and committees that do not have staff, Dave Sullivan worked on a Google form to request a posting, and I think this will be really helpful. It's just, again, it's a way for boards and committees and volunteers who don't have direct staff, it's again for them to communicate with us, and we can get those requests up in a timely manner. We also have a email address called websiteteam@doverma.gov, and that will be listed on the website, and that will just be general, any public questions, concerns, boards and committees can use that email. So that will just be our general public email for feedback or input. And finally, our news/RSS alerts. So this would be our homepage and the alerts that go out. So all requests will continue to go through the website team. And that includes boards and committees and staff. And I will mention the Google form that they've created. It does have an option, would you like to send out a news flash? So all these options will be there for volunteers. So what's next? So we really want to get staff and volunteer buy-in here. So our website guidelines buy-in from staff and volunteers, we're going to be sending the guidelines to boards and committees and staff next week. Like I mentioned previously, we'll be holding those monthly training sessions for department staff, and we really want to create the habit of routinely checking the website for updates. And of course, we'll refine any guidelines as needed as we go down here. Another immediate goal is to increase the Notify Me participation. I believe our highest subscriber list is our COVID-19 alerts, and it's up around 250. But we also have a general town alert, which is up around 250 as well. We definitely need to increase those numbers. And I think for us, it really starts with advertisement, so people know that this does exist. You can sign up for, whatever particular thing you want to know about. You can unfollow it. You can get your email off it. You get a text message if you want. It really is a lot of customization here in the Notify Me tool. But again, we just need to get the word out. So another part of our goal is to expand our online services. So we're actively working on like a central hub for all of the town's online services. We want a single location where residents can do business 24/7. We want to expand our online payment tools and offer permits and applications electronically. And finally, we are currently working on a water resource page. So we want this to be the home for all the efforts of the town, the boards and committees regarding water. So we'll have our presentations, our studies, colonial information, and we just want a central location. So these are our immediate next steps that we're working on. And really just wanted to end with like our broad mission that I always go back to is really to bridge that digital divide in an accessible and compliant manner. We want to provide online services to citizens. That's our #1 goal, but it's also to educate citizens. And this really, comes to all levels. So this is from our active volunteers that are, on this meeting right now, but then also, the unengaged people who don't really know much about local government, don't really know much about how the town operates, new residents, young families. We really want this website to be accessible to everyone. And again, the biggest thing also is the opportunity to learn things while you're passing through the website. Again, this goes to new residents and young families. There's a lot of things that you can discover when you're going to pay a bill or looking up a meeting agenda and all those other things. So that is my presentation. If anyone has any questions.
Kate, thank you very much. I just have one question, and that is to sort of what you ended on, and that's using the website as a means to proactively communicate being pushed content to Dover residents. So what's the plan, if any, to utilize to have an email for every household or a contact person at every household where we can proactively push content to our constituents?
Yeah, I think a big part of that would be in advertising the Notify Me tool. That is huge. We can send information by text, by email. I think right now that's our most immediate goal. And I think we just need to get it out there more that this exists. And it's not, you can really, it's not going to be a spam, you're not going to get tons of messages. You can sign up for what you want to receive. So we're definitely working on advertising that more.
I think that would be, I think that's just a huge component of everything, because you've done so much work. It looks so much better. It's so much more functional. The functionality in the website, I get comments. I get a lot of positive comments on what's there. And the next step is how it's a constant. How do we make our citizens more aware of all the great things that are at their disposal? So thank you. Well done. Robin?
Oh, I agree. Very well done. And I'm one of the 250 people that get alerts.
Bob?
We cover this issue on TAB on a pretty regular basis. And one of the things that I always generally start off with is it's amazing how far we've come in a year. And this is one of the areas where we've come amazingly far in a year. And, this took an awful lot of work. It took an awful lot of people. As most successful things do, it takes a team working together to make it happen. I really think that listening to you speak, Kate, listening to the 2021 sort of 21-22 sort of world, a lot of it struck me as really moving 2 feet into the information digital age. Where we've been is we've taken a very old system and a very old process and sort of moved it into this century. And the deal now is we have to, our products and services need to meet client or resident expectations. And when I think about client and resident expectations, and I look at my daughters, they expect everything to be accessible on their phones. They only use their phones. And the second part of that is people are so tired of spam that they only want to receive information that they want to receive. They don't want blast emails. They don't, I'm surprised that, I'm really not surprised that only 1/10 of the households have warning and alert signups. And the tendency, and Erin Rodat-Salva sent me a note today that reminded me of how difficult communicating to the public is, and all the mistakes that people make in communicating to the public. And most of the time, it's people are getting information that they don't want. I had four things, advertising, blah, 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 blah. So this has to be, this will be a tremendous challenge to sort of thread the needle on how much you push and how much people grab. And people are used to grabbing information that is incredibly easy to get. Apple apps. I mean, the standard is Google search and apps on an iPhone. And so making that transition, which will take years, is going to be a monumental challenge. When you're talking about websites that are active, you mentioned the Carol, which is very active. And you mentioned BLH, which is also very active. And then there's, I think the recycling committee does a pretty nice job of keeping things up to date and current. And I think that's key. If I get complaints, and I do get complaints, John only gets the positive news. For some reason, residents give me all the bad news. And it's mostly about content timeliness. So, and again, this harks back to what people are used to. So people are used to going on their iPhone, hitting CNBC or hitting ESPN and getting the latest scores of the games that they're interested in or the news items that they want to follow up on. And obviously these are huge organizations, but it's a mindset that we constantly have to keep in the back of our heads as we push, as we develop the platform. The platform is rich. So navigation is key. Getting the navigation as simple and easy to use as possible is key. And then cutting down on clicks so that we can get to the information we want very, very quickly. When I think about the website, I think about how much space and time is dedicated to sort of static information and dynamic information. So there's when you're laying out goals for going forward, it would be, to me, this would be the kind of things that that you really want to start to focus on. But if you have a great platform, we move the ball up the field on this matter. And I know for a lot for you and for Alicia, this is added work. You know, this is on top of your day job, so to speak. And so I applaud the progress, but man, I am anxious to move that ball over the goal line. And I'll be happy to do anything I can to make that happen. Thank you for the presentation. It was spot on.
Well said. Thank you. So Kate, you did such a fabulous job with that agenda item. You get to do the next agenda item. So this is the approval for the proposed submittal by DIJ Consulting for the personnel classification study. And Kate, would you like to give the summary for this?
Yes, just give me 1 minute here.
This took a while to get a consultant in, right?
It did.
Yeah,
yes.
it did.
Okay, so the town received 3 proposals in response to the classification study RFP that we posted on the town's website, and we had to post in the local newspaper and also combis. The selection committee, which was composed of myself and the personnel board, selected DIJ Consulting's proposal, and they came in at $28,000. So the selection committee used the evaluation criteria that was listed in the RFP for all the technical proposals, and DIJ Consulting came out on top. References were checked and completed, and they were all positive, and they came highly recommended. So yeah, we're very excited to start the study.
Terrific. The Municipal Management Consultant Services for the Personnel Board Classification Study is something that we have been, I believe, working towards for 2 years. Is that correct? Robin, did this, I believe this started just before your, maybe, yeah, just what, at the beginning of your term as chair? So I think it's about, I think we've been working towards this for 2 years.
Right, and that's why I said it's taken a really long time, and it's not for lack of effort.
No. So thank you, Kate. I think this is something that we are in agreement on, and the motion is, I move to authorize the town administrator to execute all documents related to DIJ Municipal Management Consultant Services.
Second.
Second, Ms. Hunter, second. All in favor? Aye, John Jeffries.
Aye, Robin Hunter.
Aye, Bob Springer.
Kate, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate the time and the effort that's gone into this.
Thank you.
Item 1.7, going through the project overview. Sorry, there's, again, I want to remind people, 68 pages to our items this evening. We had a whole lot.
Yeah, I think Bob did you a disservice by,
Bob just kept,
he wanted to make sure you felt overworked after the
oh
first
yeah,
meeting.
my first meeting.
Because he's been skating for the past year.
Just like riding a bike, Bob, just get you right back on. Determination of the board's summer meeting schedule. So the last time I sat in the middle chair, we met at least twice a week, every week for the entire summer. So I don't think we're going to do that again this year. But we are starting ending the month of May and beginning the month of June with a jam-packed schedule. So we've spoken earlier this evening about meetings, a proposed meeting next week. Chris, do you want to suggest times that are open and available from the master schedule for next week?
I think it has to be the 26th or 27th.
What I'll do is I can have Mona just reach out. I mean, I'm inclined to stick with
That sounds great.
Thursday night, but Mona can determine whether it'll be Wednesday or Thursday night, as Robin mentioned, next week. So that takes care of next week.
It's gonna be really to focus on the understanding free cash, and then if it works for people, I could also do a meeting in the morning on Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay, why don't we have, as
So
Chris
Mona can
suggested,
send something
Mona.
out, and then we can see what works.
so that will be for next week. And Robin and Chris, both in anticipation of a meeting next week to be prepared for Tuesday the 2nd. Thursday, the moderators meeting is the 8th.
It's gonna
Wait, so
be,
what's the second? That's Ford is gonna be doing a
preview for the town meeting. This is run through at an information forum. So he's gonna really need that material before the 2nd.
okay.
Right.
We gotta get that, we have to have that done next week.
Next
I mean,
week.
the town, John, there were a couple of notes going around about the moderators meeting. And I think there was conflict on June 8th. So Mona's going to come back and look to have a different date. Either right now, I said to her that I was available the 9th and 10th. And I think when we did this a little while ago, everybody was available the 9th or 10th. So she'll be sending something out presumably tomorrow morning to sort of reschedule that meeting, but it will be that first week of June.
Okay, so it based upon what you just said, Bob, Wednesday the 9th or Thursday the 10th of that first week of June.
Yeah.
Town meeting on the 12th. There is nothing on the agenda for the following week.
So John, we're the town administrator's review process.
Right.
Has to be.
It's gonna probably start now, and I think we had that completed before the end of June. So I don't know if we'll need we'll need to get together at any point in time to complete that exercise.
Chris's review has to be done before. We have to do Chris's review before June 1st.
No, before July 1st. So I think the process, and Chris and I had an arm wrestle about this one as well. I think it starts with Chris giving us his update on goals and accomplishments for the current year. I think that goes to Mary, and then Mary sends it out, and then we each get a form to fill out the form. It goes back to Mary, and then there's a composite made that have to be reviewed at with Chris and then at a town meeting. I think that's the basic outline.
That's right. So the most appropriate time for that would be the third week of June.
So the 17th or the 24th?
I would prefer the week of the 17th because to have that in hand for any modifications so it's done and it's completed before the week of from a performance standpoint, performance review for Chris for that. Robin, you all right with that?
Yeah, I'm not available. I'm not sure I'm available on Thursday night of that week.
Could you just send that to Robin?
Mona?
Robin,
Yeah,
could you send that to
when we're
Mona?
going away. Yeah. Oh, I guess I have my calendar. Something novel.
Okay.
I can't remember if we're flying out on Friday.
So
the goal is mid-June, and then we can set the date. We don't have to.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
So rather than set meetings for July and August, I would like to have the outcome of these next 3 weeks behind us, because I feel that we will set meetings and then go, nope, we got a lot more work to do.
Well, we
Perhaps.
also need to do the goals, agree on the goals and objectives. So,
Correct.
that's really what we need to do, is complete the town administrator review. And
right.
then do the goal and objectives with the town administrator for the following year.
Chris, could you remind us how we did that last year?
Sure. The board held a few workshop sessions to discuss goals and the prioritization of those goals. They met twice in July, shaped those out, sent those out to both committee members and staff members for feedback and for input. That was done in early August. The board then met again in late August to incorporate that feedback, and the final set of goals and priorities were then finalized late August, early September, which I then take and incorporate into staff work plans. So that's just a general outline and timeframe of the process last year.
Thank you, Chris. So John, you have a path.
Yeah, we're 2 in July, so I would like to have Mona get back to us with dates for June. Once we have those finalized, I'll send out a couple of working dates for planning sessions in July. Depending upon how far we get with those planning sessions, we could always add a third if need be, and then follow the same the same map for August to finalize the things that we need from a planning in July, meet to solidify them and present them to Chris in August.
So, I'm thinking the goals should take less time because, we're sort of rolling forward things,
Yes.
prioritizing them.
Yes, and I agree. I'm ever hopeful that it will take a lot less time than 2 years ago and last year.
Well, last
Yeah,
summer,
I
thought we
think
got
last
through it
year
pretty
we were really aligned.
Yeah.
Even on the priority, and Chris, we all came in on the exact same page.
Agreed. I agree. Chris, I'm sure in our notes, and I'm sure in everything that we had from last year, there are our goals, your objectives, where you stand, where we stand this year. Is that something that you or Mona could send to us to use as a template for this year?
Yeah, of course. Yep. So this evening's year in review presentation outlines the progress toward our goals this year. In that document, I've highlighted, as we'll see later on, a couple of areas that progress this year will continue into next year for the next phase. But I also do provide the board with essentially a template of what's been done. So you'll have that all in hand. Yep. So we'll send all that information over to the board.
My thinking on that line, Chris, is just that given the events of the next couple of weeks, they're going to be, regardless of how things play out, there are going to be additions to those that you cover with us this evening, and we will be incorporating those. So that'll be great. And so, Bob and Robin, do you have any objections to leaving the actual dates for July and August open until we get the feedback from Mona that we can put down into an agenda for all of June rather. So we'll get June finalized and then present to Mona July and August.
Right. And I think if anybody already has plans for July and August, just let Mona
Let us know. Agreed.
So then,
Bobby, good?
Then they'll be blocked out.
Okay. Bobby, you good with that?
Yeah, sounds good, John.
Okay, great. Thank you. Then there's no need to move to approve the June meetings because we'll await Mona to put those in a format for us.
Right.
Correct? All right. Chris, item 1.8.
Thank you, John. This is Dave's going to just quickly give an overview of next steps related to our cemetery.
Oh, great.
Yeah, just thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to give a brief history. Current cemetery software. It's over 20 years old and is no longer supported by the vendor. In fact, the vendor is out of business. And it has to be backed up manually and basically does the bare minimum of what a new modern system would do. We also, because of this, have to have a redundant manual paper process due to the inability of our current software. So we prioritize this due to the age and instability of our unsupported product and applied for and were awarded a community compact grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to fund the procurement and implementation of new cemetery software. We were awarded $30,000 for that. And we were able to review 3 different companies. I was impressed with all the companies. It is a niche software, but all of them shared similar elements. Back end for staff to keep track of operations and electronic forms. Front end for citizens to find gravestones and loved ones and create memorials. And a financial aspect to handle purchasing and invoicing. So when it came to choosing a vendor, I looked for what would be the best fit for the town and the staff who would use the software day to day. And for that, I chose Web Cemeteries. They're a US-based firm. They have local clients that are very pleased with them. And what really differentiated Web Cemeteries for me was their continuous improvement implementation approach. As the software is implemented, there is a focus on staff training as well as a continuous monitoring piece. So if they notice that a town isn't fully utilizing an aspect of the software, a representative would contact us, discuss setting up some times to review, and then potential training as well. Additionally, the account manager meets with staff periodically, basically quarterly, and there they'll help review the software and provide any refresher training. So they're very training focused, which I think is a big piece for Dover. And due to Dover's small size, I think it's the most optimal software for us, and it really ensures that we have what I've called a force multiplier in a vendor. So, it helps us with our small size, continue to use the software in the best possible manner. So we hope to begin implementation in the summer and completion by the fall. And we will not only be able to link the new software to the website, but we'll be able to digitize archival records and have a GIS map of the Dover Highland Cemetery as well. So I see this project as a win for not only the town staff, but the citizens as well, as we continue to find and modernize all aspects of town operations.
Great. Dave, thank you. I really like the matrix that you built. Well
Thank you.
done. The security, you think security in the cemetery, in the cemetery software, of course, it's got everything. It's got everything you can imagine, right? From the personal administration. So well done. I also, I will say on a macabre note, I do like the name Plot Box for cemetery software. It's a little bit twisted, but I do give them credit. So, Bob, Robin, anything you'd like to comment?
I chuckled also when I saw the name. No, it's great. Just the name got me. I was like, I'm sold.
Oh God, Bob.
No, there were too many puns and anagrams or whatever I was running through my mind. So I have one question of Dave. Dave, is this the last system that's fallen over half dead that needs to be replaced?
The people went out of business and the software developer died.
Yeah, this is definitely the only one of our systems that we have a vendor that is literally no longer in business.
Yeah,
so
kaput
every other
is the word, kaput.
Yes. So, that's why I really think it's a high priority, because of, the data that we do have already input and stored in there. I would, a manual backup to a thumb drive makes me very nervous.
Yeah, and just to be serious for a moment, I mean, there really is a fair amount of work that goes on to make sure that grieving people are well served, and to the extent that we can help in any way, it's really a good thing to do.
Yes, and there are definitely a lot of functionality that helps people grieving with losses, and can create online memorials for loved ones as well, which is really nice.
That is nice. Well done. Thank you. And if there are no other comments, I move to authorize the town administrator to execute all documents related to web cemeteries. Ms. Hunter?
Second,
Aye. All in favor? Aye. John Jeffries?
I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springer.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Item 19, manage print services. Once again, just like just like Kate, Dave, you did such a great job.
Thank you. Back to back. Let me share my screen, please.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. So on this presentation, I'd like to talk about managed services for printing, and discuss a little bit on our current print fleet and give a little background. So we have two types of devices, mainly our desktop printers, which we have 5 different manufacturers, 23 different models, and various ages. So it's really an ad hoc print fleet. And then our multifunction devices, which are colloquially called MFDs. So we have 2 different manufacturers, and we have 4 total devices, 4 large devices, and 3 of those are creeping up in age and getting close to 20 years old. So most staff has their own desktop printer or shares with another staff member sitting close by. Supplies are ordered from different sources, whether it's Amazon or WB Mason. So there's no set supplier. Departments are responsible for ordering and for budgeting. And we have multiple maintenance agreements on the MFDs only. So the desktop printers are not under any sort of maintenance agreement. And I took a look at the IT tickets, and printers are making up about 34% of the IT tickets currently. So we did a print study to get our print volumes. It was over about a 100-day period. We collected inventory of all the devices, and the lion's share of the printing is actually done on the desktop printers. As you can see, over 17,000 monthly impressions, black and white, about 5,500 color, as opposed to the multifunction devices, which are only around 6,000. And as I'll get into later, you want to have a lion's share of your print on your multifunction devices, because that's where you can really see a cost savings, because to print on a larger multifunction device, the cost per print is much cheaper. So we did a cost comparison. So, and based on our current monthly average and the industry average CPP, or cost per print for these printers, we are looking at approximately just on black and white, about $333. Average cost for color, which is much more, $638. So total monthly spend just on printing of about $972. If we take into account as well the annual maintenance for the multifunction devices from 3 different companies, we're looking at an average annual print cost of about $12,000, so a little over $1,000 a month just in printing. So looking at that, I came up with a proposed solution utilizing managed print services. This would be in 3 phases. The first phase would be to consolidate and automate the purchasing of ink. The consolidation of maintenance, so all the desktops and MFDs now would be under a single maintenance agreement. A second phase that would replace our aging multifunction device fleet with 4 new devices that would be strategically placed. And then a final phase where we would start to remove any of the redundant and obsolete desktop printers where they're really very costly, and move a lion's share or most of our printing over to the MFDs. So coming up with a managed print service and that plan, our estimated costs for printing monthly would move down to about $644, about $180 for black and white, about $464 for color. And we wouldn't have any additional maintenance costs. This would include all our maintenance. So we would not only have maintenance on the MFDs, but we'd also have them as well on our desktop printers. So some of the benefits, I think you guys can see right away, a big savings on the monthly cost of printing just on the desktop fleet, a maintenance cost savings of $1,100 that goes away, that's absorbed into our print costs. 35% decrease in the use of these inefficient and costly printers, going from about 26 printers down to 17. And this would be continuous. So as we continue to monitor these devices, we would look at where we can continue to get rid of these costly desktop printers. These modernized devices will now be single devices that would be able to copy, print, and scan, and also fax as well. And so finance, community development, and the town garage, where we would move 3 of these devices into, do not have that capability in their multifunction devices currently. Another big aspect is these devices can interact with our Google Workspace. So we would now be able to scan and go right into our Google Workspace or into our Google Shared Drives. That's functionality that our current scanners do not have. So this would be something that would really help us with our digitization efforts as well. So we would no longer really be required to have an on-prem file server. We can now move everything to the cloud and really kind of kickstart even more the next phase of our digitization efforts. The speed increase just on the printing, you go from 35 pages to 53 pages a minute. The elimination of paid and unused toner. So, a lot of times departments may anticipate the need of toner and it just sits around, and that device may, suddenly break and no longer be in service. So now you have toner sitting around that can't be used. Centralization of the management of the devices. I briefly mentioned that before. So we would be getting monthly reports. If we see a spike in printing in one area, we could move that to different devices. Same day on-site support. This is something I am very, very interested in. So this would be an average call to completion in 4 hours, and it would free up IT staff to work on other items. That would be me. And the automatic ordering of toner. So the devices would automatically know when they're getting low and would send out a message back to the company, and we would automatically get toner in about 2 days. So any questions on that?
Very well done.
I say sign up now.
Bob, anything you'd like to add?
No. Looks great.
No, Dave, in all seriousness, well done. We did something similar to this in my office a few years ago. Took everybody's desktop away, went to a Ricoh, big, and just the cost of ink alone. We literally were so mindful of black and whites cost 10 cents a copy, and color copies were, $4 a copy. So, and now with this type of a service, it automatically orders things come automatically. So it's just this will be a great improvement. So thank
It
you.
also helps you don't get the time to stand so frequently on your Fitbit or Apple Watch, because you have to get up and walk to the printer. So it helps with that too.
There you go.
So I do have a question.
Sure.
When I moved from JP Morgan to Fidelity, I was sitting in the office and somebody said to me the fax machine broke down. And this is in the 90s. And I'm going, what the heck are we faxing to people? And if we are, we need to stop, because we have this thing called the internet, and we ought to be able to send electronic documents. So my first question as I looked at your presentation, Dave, was, what the heck are we printing? 17,000 pages. Why are we doing that at all? And so when I try to evaluate this effort, it's like the first question that pops into my mind is, what the heck are we doing? Why are we still printing all those pieces of paper? And so before we could go ahead to hear the solution to printing, we need to understand what it is we're printing, why we're printing it, and how we could eliminate or reduce drastically the number of items that are printed, and therefore you would impact the number of printers that you would need. So I'm assuming, you had some nice work on the overview, but does anybody know why we're printing so many documents?
Well, I have done a project like this before, and what we found was moving to centralized MFDs actually reduced the amount of printing, because
people didn't want to get up.
People didn't want to get up. So a lot of times, if you have a printer right next to you, it's almost a habit. I'm going to print this out. So, a lot of times people are, when they have to get up and move, suddenly now, oh, I don't need to print that. But also, I think I think we have been moving a lot of stuff, a lot of print, now to being into the Google Drive as well. And I think this now bridges the gap of people had to before, if they wanted to scan and save something, they would have to scan it on the device, put it on the shared drive, which is an on-prem device. So now you have the ability to not only merge what you were saving on your Google Drive, but if you do have something that was printed somewhere else, you can scan it and now it's all in one place. So I think that also will help with some of the printing reduction as well. I think it's just changing habits as well. And
Yeah,
I think this helps having a modern, modern devices and key locations and not just having, the old HP printer right next to you.
Yeah, I agree because I don't have an old printer sitting next to me. My wife said, we're getting out of this because we don't want to do all the things that you said. And so I was immediately converted to non-printing. And so I just think that if you're going to do this work, you need to understand why we're doing the amount of printing that we're doing now. And it needs to be a part of the analysis and set of recommendations as you move forward. If you can eliminate 50% of the printing, then we need less items and you can move people into the digital age a lot quicker. That's only my only comment. The other thing is on your cost slide, clearly reducing the number of tickets frees up a certain amount of your time and it's a valuable cost savings.
Yes.
Okay, I'm done, thanks.
Yeah, Bob, compliance to old standards, just simply in the building permit process. When I was having a conversation with Walter today, he was literally walking out the door with paper in his hand to give to a contractor that the contractor had to have that minute in time to get to the next step of the project. So there's still a lot of processes that the town has in part of their whole workflow that rely on paper, literally.
Yeah, we always do it that way. That's what I got for most of my career. Why do you do it that way? Oh, we always do it that way.
Yeah, and so how do you give the contractor or the permit or the license or whatever the case may be? Somebody comes in to see Felicia for a license. She gives them physically something. That's part of how you'd have to replace that. So I think it's a great question. I just think that the answer is there's a lot of layers to it.
Yep.
So it's a good start, right? It's a very good start. So Chris has got that black printer on his desk. That's the first one that goes, right? So the motion is, I move to authorize the town administrator to execute all documents related to Xerox Business Solutions Northeast.
I will second
Robin?
it. I have seconded it.
All in favor, aye. John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Springer.
David, thank you very much. Well done. It's a great, both great presentations, lots of detail in the cemetery, lots of very similar detail, very easy to follow, both presentations, and really, really well done, well laid out. Same with Kate. Both of your presentations, all of your presentations tonight were excellent. Very well done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was 1-9. Chris, the crescendo, the Dover's fiscal year 2021, a year in review presentation.
All right, Kate, you mind bringing the deck up for me? I'm sure the last thing everybody wants to hear right now at 9 o'clock is an 18 slide deck. I will try to be brief, but I don't want to be too brief to do a disservice to all the really great work that has been done in the community
Right.
this past year.
So on the subject of that, Chris, I mean, you have done great work and I think it's 9 and everybody's tired. Would you want to maybe do this at our meeting next week and start with it? Because this is important and A lot of hard work has gone into everything. I just hate to do it at 9 o'clock tonight.
I would second that.
Then why don't we move this, Chris, if you don't mind, because I agree with everything Robin has said. Could be the first time that I'll say that. This, with regards to this, all kidding aside, I do agree with both Robin and Bob, and I would really like to have this as the first thing we do rather than the last thing we do right before the consent agenda.
No, I agree, because last year I got such positive feedback from citizens. I never get positive feedback from citizens. Nobody's left on the call.
Only John gets the positive. I don't get the positive either.
So Chris, if you don't mind, I really do think that's a great idea. We could table this and have it next week, and just let's wrap up with the highway bids and the consent agenda.
Sounds great.
Great. Well, let's move to item 11, the highway bids.
Fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, this item has to be withdrawn as well. The bid opening was this afternoon, and the materials that came in are just not ready for the board to execute them. So there's no necessary time crunch with getting these bids going forward. So they'll be on a next agenda. It doesn't even have to be next week's, but we can coordinate. John, I'll coordinate with you as the chair on when the best back up.
Okay. Do you want to go over your administrator updates?
I thought the board was before me.
Sorry.
Out of
Item
order.
12.
Yeah.
I have no update from open space. Robin?
I do not have any updates this evening.
And Bob, I know that everything that you've been working on for Carol and for these budget items you might have gone through already, but let me ask, anything else you'd like to add?
The only, clearly the focus of the Carol Building Committee is to get everything ready for the special town meeting in June. I would like to make sure that we recognize the communications outreach that is really about to take off. You'll see signs about the community center special town meeting. You'll see banners. There'll be handouts at the transfer station. And there's a whole slew of other things that have been planned. So we're hoping that effort will ensure a healthy attendance at the June 12th special town meeting.
Thank you. The little blue signs that were put out yesterday.
Yeah, those are great.
Are great. They're in great locations.
They're also easy to see.
Really are. So Chris,
That's it from me, John.
I'm sorry.
That's it from me.
Thank you, Bob. Chris, would you like to just cover item 13, the updates?
Sure. I'll save all my project updates for the year in review presentation next week. The one thing that I will mention to the board this evening, just as an FYI, is I think as we all have seen now this week, there's been a flurry of activity as it relates to COVID-19 updates and restrictions and the lifting of those restrictions. Kate gave the board a nice presentation of the work that she and the town have been doing to reopen the building, get everything back to normal. So that is still in process. The one thing that may change, however, based on the governor's latest update, is remote meetings. So the governor's state of emergency allows us to do what we're doing right now. And that is set to expire on June 15th. If the legislature or the governor don't make any changes to allow this type of remote meeting to continue to happen, we will have to go back to in-person meetings beginning June 15th. So I'm going to draft a memo just to that effect that I'll share with the board before I send it around to the other boards and committees and to staff. But we're working diligently with our legislative delegation and others to lobby them to consider some type of hybrid model or to allow this opportunity, because I think many communities, and I've heard it from the board and in Dover, appreciate kind of the flexibility and the participation that remote meetings or hybrid remote meetings have. So we're hopeful that the state will do something, but as it stands tonight, right now, if, come June 15th, we'll have to go back to in-person. So we're preparing for that, but we're being optimistic. And I'd like to just give an update to boards and committees so that they know that we're looking at it and we're prepared for, whatever comes our way, middle of June.
Chris, to what extent does the vote that the Board of Selectmen took 2 years ago to authorize remote participation, so we, the Board of Selectmen, we were ahead of the curve in that one particular item, where as long as one of us, let's just say, for example, as long as I am at the Selectmen's meeting room, everybody else could be remote and we would still be compliant, because we do have the ability to do that. We did pass that as the board of Selectmen.
So unfortunately, that only applies to members of public bodies. It is not extended to members of the public. And it really, it only allows, it requires a quorum to be present in the building. So there's really only one of you who could stay at home and continue to operate remotely. So in essence, everybody needs to come back. And I will say that while Dover certainly was ahead and proactive on that, Dover adopted what the state allowed, and the state only allows that extension to members of public bodies. So they're pretty restrictive in that sense.
Understood. Thank you very much. If there's no comments or questions on that, I'll move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of approval of license and agreements between essentially the town of Dover and the occupants of the Carroll building. The Center for Child Development, CDC, approved the licenses between Dover, the Boy Scouts of America, approved the license and agreement between Dover and Dover Automotive. Our items 1 through 4. Items 5 are approved the special liquor licenses for May 31st, June 4th, June 5th, June 6th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 16, 18, 19, 20, 25th, 26th, all in 2021. And which leads me to comment, the world is opening back up again. So if there are 14 items of special liquor permits for the month of June, which is great. Approved the March 19th, April 1st, April 15th, April 22nd, 28th, all 2021 open meeting minutes as presented. I, John Jeffries, seconded.
Robin Hunter.
All in favor? I, John Jeffries.
I, Robin Hunter.
Hi, Bob Spratt.